Hello everybody, my name is Eloy Ortega and I am the Director of Digital Marketing at the Youth Design Center. The Youth Design Center takes young people, we train them in STEAM, and then we put them in front of clients so that they could build out their resume, they could build out some experience, and they could build out their portfolio. What I wanted to talk to you about today is Youth Design Center is reaching 10 years in a couple of months. And we have a couple of campaigns that are going to be going on concurrently to celebrate the 10-year anniversary. One of the initiatives that we're taking on is to build out an interactive timeline on the YDC website. So what you're seeing over here is our Squarespace YDC site, and we have a timeline on this page, and all the content is coming. Something like this. Again, this site is built out in Squarespace, and we have this Z pattern over here, right, where we show a year. There's going to be an image over here, and then when you click on anywhere on this row, the following happens, right? We get an expanded view. There is some more context for what happened that year, some milestone that happened that year. And in addition, if we have a year that has more than one milestone, then we have something like this, where we have something that's collapsible, like so. So we're going to get into how you can build something like this and then integrate it into Squarespace. So what I am doing is I'm building out inside of Replit for this example. I just created a brand new REPL, and I'm just going to clean out some of this stuff that we're not going to be using. So I think all of this can go. So basically I'm going to build it out here, make sure that it works here, and then I could paste it into our Squarespace site. So over here, I'm just going to clean this out. I also want to clean this out. So I just have my bare bones required tags for HTML. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to inject the HTML, get the framework for our timeline going. So how I did that was I injected a main tag over here and ended and closed it out. And then inside of there, I'm going to establish something for the line that we see in the middle of the timeline. And then I'm going to build out a section. So I'll build out the section here, and then I'll go through line by line what's going to be inside of there. So I'm not sure if Squarespace is using main or using section. So that's why I'm giving this main an ID, just in case. I'm going to give it the value of timeline. So this way, when I call timeline, I know that it's calling this code and not any other code that may be used inside of the demo. So I have a section over here. This section is going to refer to just one row, one thing that has the year, the little point that we see on the timeline, and then the image that will be on the side. So let me go and build that out. So there's going to be a box, and it's going to contain a year. Then we're going to follow that up with the point. Notice I'm giving these things classes because this is going to be a repeated pattern. We're going to repeat this 10 times, right? There's going to be 1 point per year, and there's 10 years in this celebration. So there we go. Okay, so let's talk about what we have over here. So here's the whole of the timeline, right? Everything that you see that is the timeline on the webpage will be contained within main. As a child of that, we have the line, right? The line that's going to go straight through the middle. And then here are the individual rows that you see. So there's going to be one for 2013, one for 2014, so on and so forth. And that is going to contain 3 children. And I'll collapse these so that it's a little bit easier to see, right? And the way I'm breaking this down is that we're going to have one box that's going to go on the left, then we're going to have the point in the middle, and then we're going to have another box that's on the right of that line. So I'm going to start off where the year is on the left-hand side. So if we expand this, we can see I just have an H2 in here as a class of year, and we call it 2013. Here is the point. The point is going to be empty. I'm going to use some CSS magic in order to make it a small circle. And then we have the right section. The right section is going to contain a lot of content, and that content is going to be pretty hefty, right? So it's going to start off. I'll just collapse these so that's a little bit easier to see. I'll even separate it out from everything. Let's give it a couple of lines over here. And let's see where this ends. It ends over there. There we go. Okay, so this is the right section. And the right section is going to have, in this case, is going to have content. The content is going to contain an image, right? And that's that square image that we saw when the page is at rest. And as a sibling to that, we are going to have content expanded, right? So the idea is if we refresh this page, we'll see it, right? So here's the year. The point isn't showing up because there's no content inside of this div, and that's how divs act when you don't put anything inside them. Sorry, I'm pointing to this one over here. And then for the right, we have both this square image and then this whole div over here that contains this image, this title, and this text, right? Now, eventually what I want to get to is with the JavaScript that we're going to inject in here, we're only going to see one, right? At page rest, on page load, we're going to see just this, and this is going to be there, but it's going to be hidden. And then when we click on this row, right, this image will disappear and this content will appear. And then if we click it again, the reverse will happen. This will disappear and the image will reappear. And we'll just show that one more time, right? So here I'm clicking on 2013, or I click on the image, and anywhere here, I click, that square image goes away, and then this whole card shows up instead. Click on it again, the card disappears, and the square image comes back. So that's what we're gonna build out over here. And there's siblings right now inside of this div called content. Okay, so let's get our HTML. So we have one row, and the next step in this process is to build out the CSS. Let's see if we could get one row going, and then if we do, then we could build out the rest of the rows that we're going to need. If we do this right, then that means that I just need to copy and paste this 10 times and then just pop in the appropriate content, right? Switch left and right content as we go down so that we could get that Z pattern. Okay, so that's the HTML for now. We're going to come and revisit that. Let's go and write some CSS. So I'm going to come up here, and inside the head, here's a style tag. And inside that style tag, we want a couple of things, right? So first thing that I'm going to call is I'm going to say that that expanded stuff, the rectangle image with the title and all that stuff that will be hidden on load. I'm just going to disable this for now, just so that you can see the groundwork, right? I'm going to give it a brown. I'm going to give it a gray border. I'm going to give it some padding, right? So we can see that over there. There's an issue with the image. I will fix that. So it's going to have a background and it's going to have some padding so that the text doesn't butt up against the edge. And then by default, we should hide it. It should be set to display none. So let's try that again. There you go. We have the year, the point's there, it's just not visible. And we have the square image. We don't see the expanded view because the expanded view is hidden, but it does have a background color and does have some padding. Okay, next up, we're gonna add in the CSS for the timeline. So we're now gonna go and talk about that main element, right? And what we're doing over here is we're setting up a grid. And the grid is going to have 3 columns. The left-hand column is going to be set to auto. So we don't know how big or small it needs to be. The middle is going to be 10 pixels, and then the right is also going to be auto. So the middle is going to be 10 pixels, and then the left and the right-hand sides are going to be as big as they need to be. Same thing for the rows, right? I know I need 10 rows, so I just set auto 10 times per row inside of my grid. I'm going to set a width of this to 810, right? I may change that later on after this video, but I do need some parameter so that my timeline just doesn't go flying off the page. I need that width so that I can center my whole timeline. And that's where margin 0 auto comes in. It's going to center main inside of the space over here. So let's refresh. Right, and that's where we are. That's what we have, right? So it's clean. There's a whole bunch of space over here. We're going to go in and we're going to fix that as we continue on. Okay, so remember I said the image that was inside that expanded view, it was flying, it was breaking outside of its parent. So let's go and fix those images and make them responsive. So here we go. We're going to set it so that any image that's inside of this timeline is set to a max width of 100%, meaning it can't extend past its parent. And if in any case where the image is smaller than its parent, then we're setting it to width auto. So that means that it can't be any larger than its pixel dimension. What that means is if I have an image that's 300 pixels wide and it's going to be in a container that's 600 pixels, it's not going to keep on growing to fill up those 600 pixels. It's going to stop growing at 300, right? It won't be any larger than 300 because anything larger than that, we'll start seeing pixels and it just gets gross. So we'll stop there. Now, let's go and build out the line. So I have a ID for line over here, right? So that's the div, it's empty. We don't see anything of it. So let's go and change that. So here I'm saying that it is going to be a width of 1. Remember, it's going, well, I'll get into that in a bit. It's going to have a width of 1. It's going to have a background color of gray, right? We're going to shift it over 4 pixels. So it'll be 4 pixels of negative space, then 1 pixel for this line, and then that leaves another 5 pixels on the side. And then we're going to assign it to the grid columns of 2 to 3, right? And that's that 10 pixels that we had specified over here. It's going to take up this space. And it's going to go from the very tip top of the timeline to the very bottom of the timeline, right? And that will give us our vertical line. So let's go and see where that is. There it is, right? So now we just need to continue building out our grid. Section by section. So the next thing that we're going to do is call those sections. Now the sections themselves are going to need to contain a grid as well, right? So these sections, these rows that are existing inside of this grid, they are going, the sections themselves need to fill up the whole space for a particular row. So that's where we have column going from the very left-hand side to the very right-hand side. And then I'm also establishing that it has its own grid, right? And that's for the year and the image that are going to be on either side of the line that we've established here, right? So I'm just setting that up. It's the same thing as what I did in timeline. I'm just setting it up again over here. Okay, so let's see, where is the line? Looks like I lost it. It might be butting up right against the image. So let's go and fix that. So let's go in and start styling left, the left-hand side. So we're gonna say that the year, right, or whatever is there, should be up against the right, and there should be some padding there. We don't want it to butt up against the line. Okay, let's do the same thing for right. We want the text and any content on the right-hand side of our timeline to be aligned left with some padding, And that should give us some space for our line. And let's go in and add the point. I'm going to put that right in between left and right. I'm going to have a couple of sections in here. I'm going to have 10 sections. So let's go in and build out just the first section that we have over here. And I'm going to pop that in directly over here. And that should give our timeline some height and allow us to see the line that's in there. There you go. So I'm going to build out a couple more. I'm going to need 10 of these, right? By the way, the syntax is saying, go into the timeline, look for a section that is the second child, right? And the reason why I'm looking for the second child, even though this is the first year, here is because I do have this line. The line is the first child. This section is the second child. So that's why my count of the sections is starting with 2. So let's build out a couple of others, and notice that I'm saying go from from grid row line 1 to 2. That'll fill up the first space, and then I'll just add in a couple of others. So the next one will say go from 2 to 3. The next one will go from 3 to 4, and continue down that line. And eventually I'll just keep on populating these until I have all 10. So I'll take care of that requirement. The last thing is that year is very small. So let's go in and increase it, right? So that year has a class of year. So let's go in and we're going to change it to the font size of 80. I'm not going to do any other typographic stuff because, again, the website is built out of Squarespace, and Squarespace has some typography built into the CSS already. So what will happen here is that as soon as I get the functionality here built in, then I can go in and pop this code into the backend. And as you can see here, it adopts the typography that's already been set. And by the way, this is Maserati, and I think this is Maserati, and this is Oswald. Those are the 2 fonts that we're using. Okay, so my CSS is done. Let's go check out that year. There we go, nice big year. So now that I'm happy with this, let's go and add in a couple of other sections, right? So if when I was doing this earlier and I was building this out manually, I just took this section code, copied it, pasted it, right? And then refreshed, and what I saw was another row with another point, right? And then what I was doing was switching this stuff around. So I was taking the year, taking it out of left, putting it into right, and then taking all this content over here, cutting it from right, and putting it into left, like that. And that's what's going to give me my Z pattern, right? I did do a couple of other modifications, so let me just copy all that HTML over. I'm gonna go from this section. I built out a couple of years already, so I'm just going to take those sections, replace what I have over here. It's the same thing, I just added more. Let's go from section to section. Refresh. Okay, so there's 2013, 2014, 2015, right? The only thing that I did add in here was this thing over here where we have a collapse, and we'll be seeing that later on. But basically, I'm just having it so that when I click on one of these things, I built it into 2014. So when I click on one of these things, there's more content to see below that. And that's so that we could cut up these milestones into more digestible chunks. So here is the UI. And let me take a look at it on full screen. So there's my CSS. Right, it's looking good. So now the last part that we need over here is the JavaScript, right? Now I checked and Squarespace does use JQuery, and since it's already using it, I have no problem using it here. So what I'm going to do is inject a JQuery library right at the end of all of this stuff. And then now that I have jQuery inside of my replet, I'm not going to need it for Squarespace, so I'll need to remember to remove that. I could just go in and start building out my own script, leveraging the shorthand code that comes with jQuery. So first things first, what I want to do is I want to build out the functionality for the click event. Right, so when I click on this whole row over here, I could just, I'll see these square images be replaced with the big content underneath it, right, or hidden within it. So here's how I'm going to start that off. So let's add in a comment that says expand, and then I'm going to create this thing over here, which is just saying when I click on either the left hand side of the timeline or the right hand side of the timeline, the following is going to happen, right? And I'm going to specify those steps directly inside of this function. So the reason why I did it this way was because I found out that, or I learned the hard way, that if I just selected section, the left and right hand divs inside of this section are filling up the whole space. So I can't actually click on section, I'm clicking on the children that are within them. So that's why I set the selectors to left and right. Okay. So if I click on the left and right, then this is going to happen. I'm going to go from those, whatever I clicked on, look at the parent section, and then come back down to look for the image, this thing over here, right, in this case, right? So if I click on 2013, or I click on this, it's gonna go up to come back down to find this specific image. And that's so that it doesn't accidentally, I don't hide either this image or this image. I want to hide this specific image, and that's what this line is saying. So from whatever I click on, go up to the parent, and then come back down to find the square image, and then toggle it. So if it's showing, hide it. If it's hiding, show it, right? And then let's do the same thing for that expanded content. Right, we want to toggle that too. So I'm going to refresh over here. Well, actually, I should refresh over here. And if I click on this, that's what we got, right? So the image hides and the expanded content shows. If I click over here, it still works. That collapses that one. That collapses that one. So on and so forth. Okay, cool. So that's the main functionality for an interactive timeline. The next thing that I want to do is I want to go in and start working on this collapse. So here's the collapse, right? So you can see it all laid out over here. What I want to do is that if I click on this, specifically, this paragraph will hide or it'll show, depending on what current display state it's in. So let's go and take care of that. In order to do that, first thing is I need to make sure that those collapses are set to display none. So if I take a look at the UI, if I take a look at the HTML, I have classes over these paragraphs called collapse. And the thing that I want to click on to control whether or not we see them is called collapse btn. So I'm just going to add this CSS to the top of my style sheet, just to say that these things should be hidden. Right. So when I refresh over here, click over here, you can see those paragraphs are not showing. Right. So now what I need is the JavaScript that's going to allow me to click on these things and then see the content inside it. So let's come back down here. And this is going to start off the same way as the previous script or code block. So this is for the accordion. I believe I spelled that right. So it's going to start off as, when I click on those buttons, the following is going to happen. Right, and then I specify what happens when I click on those buttons. So the most important thing is the following sibling, right? So the gloss button is there as a sibling to it. The next sibling is that div that contains content, right? That paragraph. So as soon as I do that, then it's going to display, right? And just to end this off and make sure that it's not going to trigger anything else, I'm going to set this to return false, right? So it's just going to stop the expand or collapse from triggering. Right, so let's try that. So I click on this, I click on collapse, and you can see the paragraph. Click on it again, it disappears. Right. The only thing is that this triangle, I want it to rotate down. So let's go and add in some code that does that. So I have a conditional over here. This conditional is simply saying when the arrow is pointing one way, point it down. If it's not pointing sideways, then point it sideways. So let's go and give that a shot. So I click on this, arrow points down, click on it again, arrow points left. Okay, so that's it, really. We got our interactive website. We got our interactive timeline. So all we need to do now is copy and paste this into Squarespace. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So what I want to do over here, I'm going to select all. Right. Remember, I have required tags. I have a JQuery thing over here. So when I come in here, I want to make sure that it is it's sanitized from all those things. So I'll build this on another page. I'll call it timeline test, for example. Okay, so here's my empty page, right? So what I want to do is I want to add a section. It's a blank section, doesn't need to be fancy. And inside of here, I'm going to add the embed block, right? I also want to make sure that this is set up as a grid. I want to make it pretty long. I'm going to have 10 of these after all. And I'll stop there for now. And if I need to expand it some more, I can totally do that. Okay, so now I want to go into the embed. I want to put in a code snippet, and I want to put in my code. Right now, the spacing on this is absolutely terrible. It's a very small thing to put in a massive amount of code like this. So I just need to be very deliberate about what I'm removing. So I want to remove the closing body and HTML tags. Let's get rid of those. Let's scroll up and look for the beginning of the script tag. There it is. Right above that is that jQuery library. I don't need that here because Squarespace already has it. So I can remove that stuff. Here's the end of main. So I just need to look for the beginning of main, which should be up here somewhere. There it is. And then these are other tags that I don't need. I don't need body, I don't need head, right? And this is unfortunate that I have style inside of body. I know that there are people that are going to yell at me for doing that, but that's okay. I didn't see any other way to do this. So here's the beginning of the style tag, and I just want to remove this stuff up here, right? Because I'm already inside of a web page. So there it is. Let's save this. And there we go. It's all working nice and beautifully. And as I promised, the typography that's already established inside of the Squarespace site is taking effect. Okay, cool. This isn't done. I still need to build out the responsive view, but I just wanted to show you like what's possible when you have the ability to code from scratch, right? And integrate that code and use really cool dynamic UI inside of something like any type of CMS that's out there, right? We're using Squarespace in this example, but this could have also worked inside of WordPress or Shopify or Wix or anything else. Right. So thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you all soon. Bye.